everybody, happy 4th of July weekend. I'm Chad, I'm here in my backyard. A special greeting to you. Thanks for joining us for worship today. A couple fun things to get started with. First, we know today's going to be great, and here's why. I had a sneak peek of Chris, who's doing the teaching today, right before he gave the message, and this is what he looked like. That's right, take a close look. That's the cowboy hat, earbud, and mustache combination. You knew in that moment when you saw the picture, this guy's in the zone. Hey, before we get to a community question for you, two quick announcements. Number one, if you are missing the opportunity to worship together, not getting enough of that, that's okay. We've got a tool for you. Go to Spotify, search Bonus Worship. You will find a list we made just for you to listen to throughout your week. Bonus Worship at Spotify. The second announcement is we keep pushing these outposts, and if you haven't connected to one yet, now's the time to do it. Almost all of ours are launched by next week. They will all be launched. We're excited about them. If you've been watching for a while and been waiting for the right time, now is the right time. If you can't do it because of health reasons, you need to be at home, we love that you're still part of this community and hope you know you belong here too. Okay, we have a community question for you, and here's the question. It's the 4th of July weekend. What do you love to grill on the 4th of July? Here's what I love, what I'm grilling right now, okay? Our family's made a practice of starting to grill some more unique meats, so we've started having a side of summer potatoes and squirrel. It's great, we love it, and we hope you love what you're eating too. Would you turn to those around you, and would you share with them what you're eating this year?
Lauren Scott and Becky McMaster here. Happy Sunday and happy 4th of July weekend. Hope you're having a blast with your families, whether you're at an outpost right now or at home. Hope you've celebrated and just had a good time together.
We're so glad that you decided to join us today and take a little time out to worship with us. We wanted to start by talking about caring, as this is our Simplified series, and we're talking about how to care for each other. And I would like to share a moment for me. I'm a cancer survivor, and care has been something that I've very much been blessed with from this group of church family and my church family from when I was a kid, and my family and my friends, and I've been blessed with prayers and cards and lots of different things that helped me get through a really trying time. And it's been important for me just to know that there is God's hand is out there working in other people to care for me. And so that was such a blessing to me, and I just wanted to share that with you guys because I think it's important as we go forward to understand that the littlest thing that you might do to care for somebody could mean a lot more than you ever think it could mean.
Yeah, I'm so glad you shared that, Becky, because there are a lot of people in our community right now, Christ's community, who really need us to show up for them, who really need to be cared for and well. And so I would hope that we would link arms together and send a card, send a text, be praying for the people around us. And so just in light of that, let's worship together. We're going to sing a couple songs this morning, and we do hope that you would just sing with the people around you and just really ask the Lord how you can care for our community well. So let's worship.
Your mercy never fails me, and all my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. Goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire, and in darkest night you were close like no other. I've known you as a father, I've known you as a friend. of the goodness of God. 'Cause all my life you have been faithful, and all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. Oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I will sing of the goodness of God. Lord, I come and I confess, bowing here, I find my rest, and without you, I fall apart. You're the one that guides my heart. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Where sin runs deep, your grace is more. Where grace is found is where you are. And where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. And Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. So teach my song to rise to you when temptation comes my way, and when I cannot stand, I'll fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness.
Well, hey everyone, glad that you're here with us this morning. My name is Chris Thompson. I am the next generation pastor here at Christ Community Church. Special shout out to those of you who are new. If this is your first time checking us out, glad that you were doing it in whatever form that might be. If you're at an outpost this morning, glad you decided to join us there. If you're with your household, sitting on your couch at home or on vacation, wherever it is for 4th of July weekend, we're glad that you're with us. If you are by yourself, we're really glad that you are digging into your faith in some really cool ways with joining us in our online virtual worship experience. So shout out to you guys. Glad you're here. Glad that you're starting to kind of get your feet wet in what it looks like to be a part of Christ Community Church when we're not able to be together in our large group sorts of ways. So this week we are jumping into week 3 of our Simplified series. The first 2 weeks have been a ton of fun. It's been cool to hear how all of you have been taking your faith extremely seriously. Last week talking about togetherness, this idea that the church exists to be in fellowship with one another, to love each other, to live with one another, to take care of each other, and to grow in fellowship with one another. If you didn't catch Chad's message for week 2, I encourage you to go back and look at it. Faith done simply. The week before that, we talked about how our faith is one where we come together to learn from the apostles' teaching, to learn from those who Jesus actually spent time with on this earth. We named it confetti cannon faith because it was the faith that when you got together and you learned, you couldn't help but go out and share it with the world. This week, we are talking all about care. We've all been the recipient of care in some way, shape, or form in our life, and we're really excited to talk about that this week, which brings me to our garden, the Thompson family garden here in our backyard. It is one of my favorite spots on our property because it's something that Sam and I have longed for a really long time, this place where we could grow good food that was healthy and good for us to eat, that would nourish our bodies. And it's become a place very quickly where I have loved having meetings out here and working out here because it just is a place where I can care for my soul. But we'll get to why the garden is important to care in just a little bit. I first have a student of ours, Mike Thompson, who's going to be, well, who is a senior now, I guess, with graduations happening and students transferring up to the next age level. So shout out to you, Mike, for being a senior. He is going to read the scripture for us this morning. It comes from Acts chapter 2, verse 42 through 47. So as we're reading this, look for ways that you see the early church care for each other really well.
They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their numbers daily those who were being saved.
So did you catch the ways that the church cared for each other? If you didn't, you can look back again. We'll have it on the screen for you. It's in verse 45. Here's what it says. It says that they sold property and possessions to give to everyone who was in need. Now that's a pretty bold way to ensure that you are caring for the people in your congregation, and we do that. We have a benevolence fund that people have given generously to take care of mortgage payments and utility bills and things that they just aren't able to pay. But there's also the small ways. The author's getting at the big things to show that they were willing to do whatever it took to take care of each other. But there's also the small ways, the unwritten ways that the writer is trying to get us to think about for care, the ways in which they cared for their community well, in which we wouldn't normally write about. But we often see the big acts of being cared for, don't we? When somebody is sick, either ourselves are sick, when we come down with an illness that kind of debilitates us for a while, we think about cancer or autoimmune diseases or whatever it might be, immediately caring bridges pop up, meal trains pop up for our family members. They come over and visit us and take really good care of us. Care shows up in really big ways like sickness or injuries, or when somebody loses a job, we're able to be there and cry with them, to help them look for another job, to provide for them if they need some help, bring an extra meal or two in order to help them have food during that time, or when there's a death of a spouse or family member. All of us have been on the receiving end of somebody caring for us when we had somebody in our family die. And those are all major ways that the church comes together for each other. And the author wants us to make sure that we get that, and to also get the small ways as well. Like for us in our day and age, those random encouragement texts. I got one of those last week Sunday from a friend of ours in Michigan that she said she was just thinking about us, and it was really cool just to get that out of the blue for Sam and I to both get that message, just to know that they were caring about us and we're thinking about us. So that's one way to care in the smaller ways. Random drop-off of goodies. We do this with our neighbors often and they do it back with us, or we mow each other's lawns every once in a while, just as a small little thing to let them know and let us know that we care about each other. Praying with someone when you hear about something going on in our life. And one of the easiest ways for us to care for people that we come in contact with is just to listen before we speak. Sometimes listening shows that we care in some really powerful ways. There's some quotes that I came across this week, and I hope that you'll enjoy these as much as I do, because they were just filling for my soul. There was one by Margaret Mead that says these words: "Never believe that a few caring people can't change the world, for indeed that's all who ever have." And isn't that so true? We think about the ways in which we've been impacted. It hasn't been by, sure, maybe getting a promotion or getting this new item or new TV has been a really cool thing, but the things that have meant the most to us, the things that have changed our world and the world around us, has been people that have intentionally cared in our lives, or inventors that saw a problem that could help people and they cared deeply for people and created something to fill that void. There's another one by James Keller that says, "A candle loses nothing by lighting another." Isn't that so true? We've all been at a birthday party before where we take that one candle out and light all the others around it. And then you put that one candle back and you notice that the flame has just multiplied around the cake and it didn't lose anything except for maybe a little bit of wax to light everything else. And isn't that so true about how care works in our lives? Showing care to people is one of the simplest things to multiply love in our lives that we can do. Showing people that we care does three things, I think. It shows that they matter, that they're important, that they belong to God, and that they are children of God who we care for deeply. It shows that they matter. It shows that we can build trust. I don't know about you, but in those moments where somebody has come over and showed care to Sam and I or my family, it automatically lets me know that they are trustworthy people, that they're people that I can go to with problems or celebrations or whatever it might be, because they showed that they cared in moments where I needed it most. And third, it encourages them to pass it on. That whole movie of Pay It Forward, do one thing of act of kindness will multiply into another, into another, into another. That's so true for care. Whenever I've gotten care, it immediately makes me want to go and multiply that care that I've received onto others, because one, it makes them feel good, and two, it makes me feel good. Care is this amazing way in which we care and pass it on to each other. But instead of me just talking about all of the benefits of care, I want to actually show it to you in a story. This is another story from the early church, and where they did it simply, it multiplied into something beautiful. It's a story about this woman named Tabitha in Acts chapter 9. Some of you may know her by a different name. So kids, if you are watching this with us, I'm not about to say a bad word, but her name was also Dorcas, but it's also called Tabitha in the text. So let me read that for you a second. This comes from Acts chapter 9, verses 36 through 43. So hear these words from the book that we love. "In Joppa, there was a disciple named Tabitha, which in Greek her name was Dorcas. She was always doing good and helping the poor around her. About that time, she became sick and died, and her body was washed and placed in an upstairs room. Lydda was near Joppa, so when the disciples heard that Peter was in Lydda, they sent 2 men to him and urged him, 'Please come at once.' Peter went with them, and when he arrived, he was taken upstairs to the room. All the widows stood around her, crying and showing him the robes and other clothing that Dorcas had made while she was still with them. Peter sent them all out of the room, and then he got down on his knees and prayed. Turning toward the dead woman, he said, 'Tabitha, get up.' She opened her eyes, and seeing Peter, she sat up. He took her by the hand and helped her to her feet. Then he called for the believers, especially the widows, and presented her to them alive. This became known all over Joppa, and many people believed in the Lord. Peter stayed in Joppa for some time with a tanner named Simon." Now, most people will read this story, and it's kind of in this section of scripture where the disciples are moving all over Israel, doing so many miraculous things on behalf of God. And certainly that is one of the points of this text. But there's something a little bit subtler in here. Did you catch some of the things that happened in this text? Especially verse 39. Peter went with them, and when he arrived, he was taken upstairs to the room. All of the widows stood around him, crying and showing him the robes and other clothing that Dorcas had made while she was still with them. Here's what I notice in that story. I noticed the power and the circular nature of care. First, notice how she was loved by so many people. The author made specific mention to say that there were other people around her, the specific group of people that she cared with, those being the widows, the people that needed somebody to care for them. All of the widows were around her. Why was that? Why did they feel the need to wash her body and put it in the upper room? Because of the way that they cared, or she cared for them when she was still alive. It wasn't by accident that they were all there. It was because of what she decided to do. She had made such a lasting impact on them that they wanted to return that to her even after she had passed. And they wanted the disciples to know about it too. Did you notice when Peter walked into the room, the first thing that they did was not show them to where she was. They walked up to him and showed them their clothes. They showed them how she cared for them. They didn't walk up to them and show them all of the one-liners that she had in a Bible study or a sermon or whatever it might have been. They didn't walk up to their bookshelves and show all of the amazing books that she had given to them to read that impacted their life in miraculous ways. No, they walked up to them and showed the stitch marks in the clothing that she had made because it was so intricate and cared for. They had showed them the belt that she had made for them to care for them and make them look beautiful as they had become widows. All of those ways they wanted the disciples to know that she was somebody that cared deeply about her faith and cared that other people knew that they were taken care of. And because of the work she did, these widows' faith blossomed. I think this is the beautiful example of Tabitha that we can learn from. She loved those widows into loving God. Isn't that so true for our own lives? That in our lives, as we look back on it, we were loved into loving God. Most of the times that was done through moments of care. Do you resonate with that at all? Do you resonate with having people care for you that's inspired and bolstered your faith and encouraged you to go out and make it the circular pattern where you can then care for others? I know this was true for me. I can think back to my first year of undergrad when I was at Grace Christian University. I remember it coming up on November, and I'm not a person that normally gets sick a lot, but I remember this November there was a 3-day stint, a Wednesday, Thursday, and a Friday where I was sick beyond belief. I could not get out of my bed. My roommate didn't even stay in the room because he was worried that I might be contagious and he might get what I got. And I remember that I had been working on a 2-month-long family counseling project. The guy across the hall was my partner in the class, and it came to that Thursday, and he was really nervous because the entire project he had worked on with me. It was a 2-part project. I had a part to say, he had a part to say, and we had it worked out how it was going to work. There was some role-playing in there, of role-playing an actual counseling session, and we were focused specifically on how do we care for kids in the midst of divorce. And I remember emailing the professor that afternoon before my class happened. It was an evening class. And I remember saying, I am so sorry that I can't be there tonight, but I am sick. I've been sick as a dog since yesterday. And I remember my professor saying, it's okay. You'll get the grade that your partner gets as well. And I remember in that moment freaking out a little bit, and the guy across the hall rewriting everything so it could be this one-person project that would work beautifully. And he came back to the room afterwards and let me know that we got an A-. And I remember hearing and talking with him afterwards how much work went into him rewriting everything and giving a 45-minute presentation on his own about family care, counseling, and how we could care for young kids who were going through divorce. In that moment, from my professor and from my friend who was my partner in that class, I felt so loved and cared for in ways that I didn't necessarily need to be cared for. I could have just gotten this simple, hey, we'll give you a B because that's kind of the average that everybody's gotten since you can't present. And because we had scheduled out for like 3 weeks ahead of time, we wouldn't be able to schedule a new slot because we were kind of just booked through the end of the semester. That moment sticks with me. Because as I think about all of the meetings that I've had canceled last minute, or I've had people that just haven't shown up, I always think back to that moment and think, what would my professor do? What would my friend do? What would Jesus do in this moment? He would try and figure out what happened to make this meeting not happen and care for the people that were coming and that I was supposed to have that meeting with. That has always stuck with me as a reason why I need to care well for people, because there's always situations that prevent people from things. And I can either get frustrated in those moments, or I can lean in and care beautifully for them, because as we learned, care is circular. It always comes back. And so if you're at an outpost this morning, I want you to ask this question of your group. Who is it that has cared for you in ways that meant so much to you? And how did that make you feel? And what can you learn from them for your own life? So take a moment. If you're in an outpost, ask this question, pause the video. If you're with a household, pause this video as well. If you're watching this by yourself, pause this video and post about it on our Facebook page where you found this link, and then come back and we'll finish up for the morning. I hope that time was really great for you. I hope you learned some things about the people in your group and some people that have helped them become the people that they are. I always love hearing those stories. I love being in this garden. It's why I filmed this teaching in here today. Every time I work in here, you can see the tomato plants behind me. Every time I work here, I can even smell them now. They have this very distinct smell that I just absolutely love. To my right here, you can see the cucumber plants, and every time I get to help mold them and shape them up this kind of makeshift trellis that we have, it's just a really beautiful thing to watch the care that I'm putting in be brought to life. And so that's so true of our life as well, right? With the people that we've had, we can come and we can put these cages around and help it grow up beautifully and help it be shaped and grow these beautiful vegetables that are wonderful for our lives. People do this with our lives all the time. But now imagine this garden, if I just left it be by itself, what would happen? The weeds would start to grow up. They'd become 2, 3, 4 feet tall. The tomatoes would be choked out. The cucumbers would start to die. The corn over here would start to wilt and fade because weeds want to choke everything out. The only reason that they keep growing is because Sam and Mila and I come out and pick the weeds. We water the garden. We make sure that it's cared for and nurtured. If we're left by ourselves, if we're not caring for other people and other people aren't caring for us, our lives become very much like a garden that's not cared for and kept up. And so I hope wherever you are, this imagery of this garden sticks with you. The story of Tabitha follows you wherever you go, and we become people that care because we recognize that care is circular. It's powerful, and it will change the world around us. Because as Jack Keller said, no candle that's lit ever goes out. It just multiplies. And so I hope that's the way care works for us in our lives. We're going to end, as we have the past couple of weeks, by saying the Lord's Prayer together. So the words will be on the screen if you don't know it, but feel free to say this along with us as I pray to end. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen.
When Chris asked, who's the people in your life that cared for you, I had a long list. And when I think about what they did, it was really small things like a text message or a note or just stop and ask how I was doing. We want to leave you with this question. Who's somebody you can care for this week? It doesn't have to be major. It can be as simple as a text message, a personal conversation. Who's one person you can care for this week?
Friends, I pray that this week we can be like Tabitha, somebody who cares for people really well, because that's what the early church did. It was so simple. They just did it. They didn't have somebody else to send them to or to care for. When they saw a need, they just went after it. And so I hope that's what we can do this week. When we see a need, we just go after it. And so would you receive this blessing as we go out and try to be like Tabitha in our worlds? May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God our Father, and the communion of the Holy Spirit be with each and every single one of us now and forevermore. Go in peace and be those who care for the world around us.